And I have been thinking a lot about this movie. We watched it a little over a week ago. And I can't stop thinking about how many times I've told parents you're going to hurt your kid.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do things like this that you think is genius and they'll love it and they think it's great. And it destroys their entire self-concept. And you did it out of the best of intentions. So start saving for their therapy is really one of the secrets to parenthood.
We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
You are exceptionally welcome to our second video in our week, Colonizers World Tour Week, where we are talking about India. And for the month of March, we decided to focus on, countries that all started with I, that we hadn't covered yet, but also global women's stories, because this is Women's History Month. International Women's Day is always in March. It's March 8th. So we were like, let's try and find the pieces of art that go with our country explorations that focus on telling women's stories. Ooh, and, Dr. Kristen is the best Googler I know. And y'all, she found some absolute gems. So for today's video where we're talking about India, we are talking about the Netflix movie Tribhanga, Tedhi Medhi Crazy, which is from 2021, so very recently. And it is the story of this family, an Indian family. We're not told where, some metropolitan city. And we are introduced to Anu Nayan.
But it is set in India, we should say. It's not like, it is set somewhere in India.
It is set somewhere in India. We are not told where. We are introduced to an older woman, Anu Nayan, and also then her daughter, who is also named Anu. So we refer to Anu Nayan as Nayan, and that's even how her kids refer to her. And Anu Nayan has hired this man, Milan, and he is doing a video documentary of her and interviewing her for her autobiography. So there's Anu, Nayan, and Milan. So Nayan and Milan. And then Anu, who is a Bollywood actress. She has a daughter. And then there's also Robindro, who is Nayan's son, Anu's brother, who is Hare Krishna. So it's really about the relationship between the three of them, but also their extended family, because Nayan, very early into the movie, has a heart attack, a cardiac event, and is in a coma in hospital. And so this is the precipitating event that forces these people together. Throughout the film, we learn Anu has a very antagonistic relationship with Nayan. Robindro doesn't have a great necessarily relationship, but his practice of Hare Krishna has given him a different life philosophy on it. We also meet Anu's daughter, and I'm scrolling to get to her name because I know Masha. Masha. And so we learn a lot about the relationship between Anu and Masha, and the men in their lives that were fathers and boyfriends and husbands and all of this. So it is a beautifully told, complicated story of family dynamics, and how you remember things and the choices that you make and in life, and how you understand the choices that your parents made or your grandparents made at different parts of your life. And I think that's all I'm going to say, and I'm just going to let us talk through what we loved about it. As we said yesterday, if you saw, or previously, depending on how you're watching this, this is one of the best movies about family dynamics that we've seen in a long, long time. So we have a lot to talk about in this story. Dr. Kristen, away you go.
I don't even know where to start.
I know. I was just like, how do I even... My notes for this were like 2 pages long. How do we even start to talk about...
And I know it was really good because mine is 5 lines.
Yeah.
Because, like, I couldn't stop. Like, I couldn't focus on anything to take notes.
Yeah, that's true. You just sat back and, like, experienced it. And I was like... we process things differently.
We do.
But yeah, when she has hardly anything written down, you know it was good.
So I think that so let's start with the fact that she changed her kids' names against their consent.
Oh, their surnames. Yeah.
And so Nyan gets divorced because her husband's mother is an actual factual nightmare. Like, she is not great. And the husband chooses his mother.
Yeah, I mean,
routinely.
It's a multi-layered story, really, of breaking gender norms a lot in this family. Starting with Nyan, and then Anu does it as well. But Nyan is a writer, and she wants to be a writer, and her mother-in-law just thinks that's not how an Indian wife and mother should behave. And it creates a real clash of expectations and a lot of conflict with Nyan's husband, who then, chooses his mother.
And for me, it goes beyond, like, not understanding. Like, his mother makes it a war. Like, his mother chooses to be antagonistic about it, chooses to be, to not, like, I think essentially she decided that Nyan was less than. And then there was nothing that Nyan could do to change her mind. So Nyan gets away. And takes the kids. At this point, there's a whole drama over their relationship with their father, which is kind of non-existent. A little bit on his kind of terms and how he wanted to interact with them after this ultimate betrayal, I believe he sees Nyan's leaving as. And I think he was possibly a very meek man who had no idea how to be caught in between 2 incredibly opinionated women who felt very strongly that they were right 100%. Mm-hmm. And so he just kind of kept giving in, and it got easier. So what this led her to is that she eventually made the choice. She did a 10-year fight, it says, and she changed her children's names to her last name instead of her husband's.
Yep. And
she recounts this to Milan as this point of pride, as this, like, I did the greatest thing. And we hear from her kids that it was incredibly traumatic. And that it was one of the reasons Anu feels she can never forgive her mother.
Yeah.
And so the perceptions of power there. And I have been thinking a lot about this movie. We watched it a little over a week ago. And I can't stop thinking about how many times I've told parents, you're going to hurt your kid.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do things like this that you think is genius, and they'll love it, and they think it's great. And it destroys their entire self-concept. And you did it out of the best of intentions. So start saving for their therapy is really one of the secrets to parenthood.
Yeah, because I think, she very clearly thought that was what she had to do. Mm-hmm. And, they keep coming back to this idea of choice and the choices we make. It's a real central theme in this. And, like, we can look at the relationship with her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law thought that's what she had to do. Yep. Because Nyan was not meeting her expectations for an Indian woman.
Nope.
And did not realize the negative ramifications of that. Even on her son and on the marriage. And then Nyan, and when she's talking about it, she's with pride, she's talking about how she fought for 10 years to get this name change. And then we get a flashback to how Anu was treated in school and mocked by her classmates and belittled by her teacher and made fun of for her parents being divorced and for her name being changed and ostracized and all of this. And so, very often as adults, I think we think, we know what's best because we're the adult. And we don't know what's going on with our children in terms of the ramifications of those choices and actions. And we get that again with kind of the next step in Nayan's life. She meets and falls in love with a young photographer named Vikram, who ends up sexually assaulting and abusing Anu when she was a child. And so we're kind of, it's as Nayan is in this coma, we're getting Anu's kind of list of grievances as we go through this. Well, and then she did this, and then there was this relationship. And it coincides with Milan, who is doesn't get along well with Anu. I don't think a lot of people get along well with Anu.
She's prickly. She is what we would call prickly.
She is a prickly pear, yeah. But, you know, when you have a loved one in a coma in a hospital, you spend a lot of time sitting around kind of waiting for nothing. And so the two of them start to have these conversations, and he shares with her the videos of her mother. Because that how he's recorded in this process of doing her biography. And so she starts to get these insights from her mother's perspective, which for me too, it's one of the themes of this film is that the importance of trying to understand other people's perspectives and what happens when you don't. Both Anu and Nayan are like calcified in their own interpretations of things for a long time. And then I think through this process of reflecting, Nayan is starting to, we see footage of her where she apologizes, where she says she didn't realize the damage she caused her children with some of this stuff. So I think that's another real, like, critical lesson from this.
And the idea of generational trauma.
Oh.
Because what we then see is Anu assumes that she is so enlightened because she has done everything opposite her mother. Mm. And it turns out that she's being her own version of repressive and unsupportive to her daughter. Yeah. And there needs to be a reckoning within Anu of what kind of mother she's going to be and what kind of human she's going to be. And I should also say that, like, parenting children and teenagers and adults is all very different. And I think we present a narrative that it's all the same. And there is nuances. There are things you did when they were kids that you shouldn't do when they were adults. Yeah. And that's kind of what that looks like. And Anu is asked by circumstances to take a deep look inside herself. Yeah. And see if what she's doing is repeating her mother's behavior with different window dressing.
Right. And I think, you know, with this generational trauma, I was thinking about it a lot, but during the movie and after, that, like, we are often so much a reaction to our parents. Mm-hmm. And so it's very clear that Anu is a reaction to Nayan, because, and as a very typical of a person, especially a young person who suffers from physical or sexual abuse, she ends up in an abusive relationship with Masha's father. And, you know, she separates from him, and Masha does not know her father, and they don't talk about him, and she raises Masha as a single mother, similarly to how, so again, she's in a way following a similar pattern to her mother. But then Masha is so much a reaction to her mother, to Anu, who, you know, is a very famous Bollywood actress, is famous for having, you know, numerous relationships throughout her life that are very public, but not very long lasting. And so Masha's reaction to this is to marry into a very conservative Hindu family. That, you know, Anu really struggles to understand. But for me, I was just like, oh, of course she would. Of course she would want, like, structure and boundaries and a family unit, like a cohesive family unit, and rules to follow, because her mother never gave her rules. But they really clash over the fact that Masha is pregnant. And there was a discussion with her family, with her husband's family, Masha's husband's family, about what to do if the baby was a girl, because they very much wanted a boy. And it's a real powerful scene between the two of them as they grapple with what this means, and Anu tries to understand why the daughter she raised would put up with this, and Masha tries to explain like how she navigated her family dynamics. So I talk about all the time how like my brother and I are shaped by each other. Like we're shaped by our siblings and our relationships with our siblings, but also by the choices we make based off of the choices that our parents made and in reaction to the choices that our parents made. And this was so nuanced in the way that it handled it and empathetic. This movie didn't make a judgment anywhere.
No. And if I could summarize this movie, it's that it's the story of, I don't know, about 8 different people that essentially all want the same thing, which is to be loved and safe and accepted, and want wildly different elements of those qualities. And the more that they are given the opportunity to hear what love means to other people and what safety means to other people and what family means to other people, instead of assuming their own definition of those things, the closer they can actually get to free.
Yeah. And, I think it's so powerful to see, and we touched on this in our 101 yesterday, that there's some real interesting, but also at a lot of times repressive gender dynamics within Indian culture, broadly speaking. And so I was fascinated to see the story of these radical feminist women and the choices that they've made to be these radical feminist women and the consequences that they don't necessarily see, and pushing back against a society that they view as repressive or restrictive, and through their choices then rippling out to the other people in their lives. But I was like, yes, Indian directors telling this story, because it can be real easy to focus on things as more of a binary or as more black and white. And so they played a lot with the complexity of humanity in this, which was such a joy for us to sit in for an hour and a half.
And it was an hour and a half. We got in, we got out. I'm looking at all these Oscar movies that are 3 hours, and I'm like, pals, you do not need 3 hours.
To tell a powerful story, you do not at all need that much time. No.
In and out, please. In
and out. We appreciate 90 minutes.
We appreciate the economy of storytelling, and they did a great job.
We can push to 105 minutes if we have to, but appreciate the 90 minutes.
It usually ends up being bloated.
Yeah.
Like, it usually ends up having something in it where, like, oh, we could have done without that.
Especially this film and the film we're going to talk about next week for Ireland. We're both under an hour and 40 minutes. And I'll just, like, show that to people and be like, no, but look at this film and explain to me why yours needed to be 3 hours.
Like, okay, Scorsese. Like,
yeah, miss me with your storytelling, because look at how beautiful this was.
Yeah.
In and out.
I mean, I think anything else I would say at this point is rehashing some of the points that we made.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
And because this is a movie we would deeply recommend that you see. It's on Amazon Prime. It is free for... Nope, it is on Netflix. Apologies.
It's on Netflix. You're all right.
It's on Netflix. So if you have a Netflix subscription, it is there for you. The link directly to the Netflix movie will be in your show notes. Which means that it's also global. If it's a Netflix movie, every country that has Netflix should have it. And we would deeply encourage you to sit with it. It is put on the subtitles because it is like a really interesting mix of Hindi and English.
Yeah.
So put on the subtitles as you need them, and just enjoy spending time with this family and how they unfold the story.
Yeah, I can't say it any better. Next week, as we've already hinted multiple times, we will be back with Ireland. So on Tuesday, or next in the playlist, we will have a 101 on Ireland, which is not going to be short. And on Wednesday, we will be, or in the next thing on the playlist, we are talking about the movie Herself, which, as we have already hinted, was phenomenal and 90 minutes. So if we see you again for that. Fantastic. Or something else. If you liked this video and our discussion, please give it the thumbs up. The algorithm helps us make money and keep the lights on and keep talking to you lovely folks. Consider hitting subscribe so you don't miss any of our stuff. But also consider signing up for our newsletter. There will be a QR code at the end on the slide at the end of this video, and also a link below in the show notes to hear about all the stuff we do when we're not on YouTube, which is actually quite a lot. So all of those things being said and done, we will see you guys whenever we see you next.
Be well, everybody.
Bye.